Very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Yuki Portia, along with our sign language interpreter Paraka Gabriel via Zoom. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Chinese nationals to receive Sinopharm vaccine manufactured in China from Monday. Locals to receive jab following approval. Fisheries Minister unveils plans to allow Indian fishermen to enter Sri Lankan waters with a paid permit. How were 2 bowsers of substandard coconut oil released to the customs disregarding a court order? Maravilla magistrate calls for a report from the IGP. Minister Mahindananda Alugamage withdraws case filed against Ranjan Ramanayaka.
Starting off with your lead story for tonight, the President's Media Division has said that the Chinese Sinopharm vaccines which reached the country today will be administered among Chinese citizens in Sri Lanka from Monday. Now, issuing a statement, the President's Media Division noted that the Sinopharm vaccine would be administered among Sri Lankans following a study by an expert committee.
600,000 doses of the Chinese Sinopharm vaccine reached the Bandaranaike International Airport on a Sri Lankan Airlines flight at around 11:30 a.m. today. The batch of vaccines were formally handed over to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa by the Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Kee Zen-hong. According to the President's Media Division, Chinese President Xi Jinping had gifted the stock of jabs based on a request by his Sri Lankan counterpart.
China and Sri Lanka are good neighbors, looking out for each other. Good friends treat each other with equality and trust, and good partners in mutually beneficial cooperation. So in the fight against the pandemic, our two countries and two peoples have been always standing firmly together and extending a helping hand to each other. Sri Lanka was also the first countries to which China donated vaccines. It's worth mentioning that the Sri Lanka government has decided to include Chinese nationals in his vaccination plan. To this regard, on behalf of China, I would extend high appreciation for these most friendly gestures.
Like to mention that the friendship between Sri Lanka and China goes back to millennia. The event taken place today will be a very important milestone of our friendship. China stood with Sri Lanka even in very difficult times and events. People of Sri Lanka will never forget it. We faced many difficulties during last 2 to 3 weeks to bring this to Sri Lanka due to certain unexpected influences from various parties. However, we overcome all these influences and ultimately make it a success.
Chinese Ambassador Kee Zen-hong and State Minister Channa Jayasumana had signed the relevant documents acknowledging the receival of the vaccines. The vaccines are being stored at the Central Vaccine Store of the Health Ministry.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has said that China is willing to work with Sri Lanka to enhance Belt and Road cooperation and contribute to the economic revival of Sri Lanka in post-pandemic era. Now, according to a report published by Chinese media outlet CGTN, the Chinese president had expressed these remarks during a phone call with his Sri Lankan counterpart Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
The CGTN report noted that Chinese President Xi Jinping has said that China will continue to provide necessary assistance to Sri Lanka, conduct cooperation in areas including aviation and education, and explore other potential cooperation areas. During the phone call, the Chinese president had said that China will never forget Sri Lanka's support for the restoration of China's lawful seat in the United Nations. He said that China is willing to continue working with Sri Lanka to support each other on issues of mutual concern, safeguard each other's legitimate rights, and promote global justice and fairness. According to a statement published by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's office on Monday, the Chinese president had said that he hopes to witness the projects surrounding the Colombo Port City and Hambantota Port being completed soon.
The lower Malwatuoya project that is to be carried out by a Chinese company was launched in Pantirimale under the patronage of Irrigation Minister Chamal Rajapaksa today. A new reservoir is to be constructed under the project at the cost of 22.5 billion rupees by diverting the Malwatuoya from the Bogoda area. The project is also expected to meet the drinking water and irrigation requirements of residents in the districts of Anuradhapura, Mena and Vaunia.
In 2009 or 2010, I visited the Silavatura area and the Yodavavar and met with farmers of the area. They put forward a request as their area is famous for paddy cultivations. They said that they have only been able to cultivate during one season and that they require water from the Ihattava reservoir to cultivate a second season. The people require water, but when certain water projects are initiated, their homes become flooded. Various arguments are brought up when reservoirs are to be constructed, citing that it damages the environment. They vehemently oppose such projects. The people who uproot trees don't understand the gravity of this situation, but those without water are the ones who understand its value.
A group including parliamentarians of the Tamil National Alliance were present during the occasion.
Meanwhile, the bill containing the proposed legal framework for the Colombo port city has been published. According to the bill, the responsibility for the administration of the port city will be held by a commission appointed by the President. A discussion on this bill took place during the Satana program on our sister channel Sirasa TV last night.
There
is one law in force in that territory. There is another law in force in other parts of the country. The President said when he came to Parliament that there is only one law. This states that if actions are taken with the right intentions, that there will be an immunity granted.
The Free Trade Zone Act was brought in. They are free from taxes. Customs duty is exempted from imported goods. Trade unions cannot be placed in the free trade zone no matter where they are.
Now, according to the Banking Act, the financial affairs of Sri Lanka should take place as per the Act, but the introduction of this bill means that a licensed company may engage in offshore banking activities within or outside the jurisdiction of the city of Colombo to carry on banking activities under the proof of incorporation of companies in another country. This means that a request will be made for registration to the Port City Commission to obtain a license to engage in banking activities within or outside the Colombo Port City area. The permission will not be sought from the central bank.
According to the draft presented, this tax exemption is 40 years, not a short amount of time, but 40 years. It is the President who is introducing this bill. He will be 113 years old when levying of taxes is fully implemented. Although the Colombo Port City Economic Commission was set, comprising 5 or 7 members, there is an entity here called the Project Company. What is this Project Company? This says that the Project Company has the potential to sell land. If the Project Company has powers, including the sale of land, they can influence the composition of the Commission. We really need to see if this land belongs to us 100% as it has been claimed.
ඇත්තටම අපි බලන්න ඕනේ මේ ගොඩබිම අපට 100%ක් අයිති එකක්ද කියලා. මේ පනත අපිට සෑහෙන දුරට අධ්‍යයනය කරන්න වෙනවා. අනිත් එක මේ පනතේ තියෙනවා එසේ.
We have to study this bill further. On the other hand, there is no decision at present that the provisions of this act will be passed without any changes. We will have to look at all of this because there are many parties in the government. Now the 20th amendment had 10 major amendments that were proposed. Only 7 out of 10 were enacted in the end.
ප්‍රධාන සංශෝධන 10ක් තිබ්බා. 10න් අන්තිමට ක්‍රියාත්මක වුණේ 7යි.
We got a separate plot of land. We have not spent a single rupee on that land. We get this asset without spending a single dollar. It is useless to have built some land filled with sand. We need to have buildings put up. It needs to be transformed into a complete tourist city. It needs to attract a lot of investors, and that's when opportunities for jobs will be created and the country will grow economically.
A bigger market than that in Singapore will be set up here. At least 2 million new job opportunities will be created directly and indirectly through this. This creates the necessary background for the solution of the employment problems, the resource distribution disparities and the land shortages in our country to be solved. It will create new opportunities. Through this project, we need to generate revenue in ways that are different from the conventional tax and non-tax revenues. These lands are owned by the government. All businesses will operate in accordance with the Sri Lankan law. Therefore, this will also help to increase government revenue.
නීතියට අනුවයි ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ. රටේ රාජ්‍ය ආදායම ඉහළ නංවා ගැනීමටත් මේක උපකාර වෙනවා.
ඉඩම් විකිණීම සහ අනිකුත් කටයුතු කරන්න වෙන ආයෝජන සමාගමක් යන චීනයේ සම්බන්ධ සමාගමක්.
A separate investment company is being established to sell land and engage in other related matters. It has to be a Chinese affiliated firm. They have proposed a lump sum payment of rupees 400 million. Now look, the same bill that says that we will receive tens of millions is saying that we will only receive 400 million. If you convert this sum into dollars, it is just a sum of $2 million. If the land sold, there is 1% revenue on the price of the land that was sold. We can charge a fee for the facilities we offer, but there is no specification on those fees. When revenues and expenses are set off against each other, there will be no big profit. Dollars are being generated within this country, but we have no guarantees that the dollars will come. Dollars will be generated in this territory, and they themselves will take the dollars away.
සහතිකයක් නැහැ. ඩොලර් එතන ජනනය වෙයි. ඩොලර් ටික ඒගොල්ලෝ අරගෙන යයි.
Moving on, China's top lawmaking body rewrote electoral rules for Hong Kong to give Beijing decisive control over how the city chooses its leader, and legislators putting pro-establishment politicians firmly in charge of the former British colony.
The changes which were approved yesterday will curtail democratic representation in Hong Kong by slashing the share of directly elected seats in the local legislature while giving unelected political bodies more influence over the city's governance. Local national security officials will also get an offensive veto over election candidates, allowing authorities to bar opposition figures from elected office. These measures formalized Beijing's plans to tighten its grip on Hong Kong with electoral overhauls that ensure only patriots can govern the Asian financial center. China's national legislature approved the proposal during its annual session this month, paving the way for senior lawmakers to finalize the details this week.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated to a historic low against the US dollar today. Central bank figures show that the selling rate of the US dollar stands at 202 rupees and 4 cents.
According to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated by 9% against the US dollar during the last 6 months. Meanwhile, the central bank's weekly treasury bill auction was undersubscribed by 77% yesterday. During yesterday's auction, the central bank had issued treasury bills worth 45 billion rupees to meet the short-term requirement of funds. This included 3-month bills worth 10 billion rupees, 6-month bills worth 15 billion rupees and 1-year bills worth 20 billion rupees. However, the central bank had not accepted any of the bids worth 20 billion rupees that had been submitted for 1-year treasury bills. The Monetary Authority had only accepted 7.2 billion worth of bids out of 16.2 billion for 6-month bills as well. In addition, the central bank had only accepted bids worth 2.9 billion for 3-month treasury bills out of the total bids worth 10.1 billion.
We believe the government had not been willing to offer the interest rates demanded by the market regarding the treasury bills. Therefore, the central bank has to purchase the treasury bills. Since January this year, the central bank has purchased treasury bills worth 120 or 125 billion rupees. This is what we call money printing. In other words, the money that is currently in circulation is not used to purchase treasury bills. The new money created by the central bank is used to purchase these treasury bills. This would aggravate the depreciation of the rupee. It is not possible for the Treasury or the central bank to print money, forcefully bring down interest rates and strengthen the rupee at the same time.
A report published by the Department of Census and Statistics had shown that 486,524 individuals had been unemployed during the third quarter of 2020. The unemployment rate for the third quarter of 2020 had stood at 5.8%.
As
a result of failing to contain China's influence successfully, several countries with ties to China, including us, are displaying a tendency to become a failed state. Let me point out an example. What has happened to Myanmar now? Its people are saying that China is behind these activities. As a result, large crowds of people are destroying and setting fire to Chinese factories in Myanmar. A similar situation occurred in terms of oil facilities in Nigeria. Nowadays, it seems that China is controlling us rather than us controlling China. Let me be specific by pointing out the port city. If we consider the example of the Hambantota port city, we can clearly observe that those areas and facilities are under the purview of the Chinese government or Chinese companies. It is said that the law applies equally to everyone, but in the case of the port city, it is explicably visible that a separate law is being enforced in that area. A loan equivalent to 24 million yuan has been obtained. However, if we observe the trade balance between Sri Lanka and China, the loans obtained from China to import Chinese products are being paid to Chinese by default, but we have to settle the debt separately. This is a dangerous situation.
දීලා ඉවර වුණාට පස්සේ මේ සල්ලි ටික ණයත් අපි ගෙවන්න ඕනේ ඊට පස්සේ. මේක හරිම අවදානම් තත්ත්වයක්.
The United States has already allied with 4 Asian countries as they embark on projects in the Indian Ocean. The Quad Alliance, comprising of the United States, India, Japan and Australia, primarily aims at establishing a free and open Indo-Pacific. Meanwhile, Fisheries Minister Douglas Devananda has said that a proposal has been submitted to India on allowing Indian fishermen to fish in Sri Lankan waters on a conditional basis. Speaking to BBC Tamil, the minister had said that attention has been drawn towards allowing Indian fishermen to enter Sri Lanka's northern waters after purchasing a permit.
Do your online shopping now with Bulletin.lk to get it home delivered or pick up on your way.
Bulletin.lk.
Welcome back to the news. It was revealed today that the 2 tanker trucks containing substandard coconut oil had been handed back to Sri Lanka Customs without heeding court orders. Now, this revelation was made while the police were reporting facts before the Maravilla Magistrates Court.
The 2 tanker trucks in question were removed from the Dankutua police station and were taken to the Sri Lanka Customs headquarters. Further tests were carried out on the oil samples inside the trucks at Sri Lanka Customs. The 2 tanker trucks were handed over to Sri Lanka Customs against a backdrop where the Maravilla magistrate Rakita Abesinghe had issued an order to send the oil samples to the government analyst for tests. Maravilla magistrate Rakita Abesinghe questioned the police based on what orders were the tanker trucks handed over to Sri Lanka Customs. Responding to the query, the OIC of the Dankuta police station said that the move was made following the instructions given by the police legal division. Thereafter, the magistrate questioned the OIC whether they operate adhering to the instructions given by the police legal division or the court. Hence, the OIC attached to the Dankuta police station was speechless before the question, and the magistrate ordered the IGP to look into this matter and compile a report. The case will be taken up again on the 21st of April. However, a problematic situation has risen regarding the handing over of the coconut oil consignments in question to the companies that imported them. Sri Lanka Customs does not have enough storage facilities to store all these consignments. However, we send those consignments away under a bond. Our yards to carry out tests are located in Urugodawata and Grand Pass. These areas are not suitable to carry out tests. Therefore, I wanted to clear these yards. After inspecting several locations, I decided to set up a yard in Kerawalapitiya. We are hoping to start operations next month after we receive the cabinet approval. After that, we will not encounter any of these problems.
වැඩ පටන් ගන්න කැබිනට් අනුමැතිය ලැබුණාට පස්සේ එතකොට මේ කියන ප්‍රශ්න කිසිම දෙයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
තනිකරම පිළිකා කාරක පොල් තෙල් ලංකාව තුල බෙදා හැරලා කියන කාරණාව දැන් ඔප්පු වෙලා තියෙනවා. රමේෂ් පතිරණ මැතිතුමා වගකීමෙන් කැබිනට් මාධ්‍ය හමුවට ඇවිල්ලා කිව්වා.
It has been proven that coconut oil containing cancer-causing elements has been distributed across the country. During the cabinet media briefing, Minister Ramesh Patirana responsibly said that the harmful stocks of coconut oil had not been released to the market. But hours later, 2 bowsers containing substandard oil were seized in Dankutua. The Director General of the Ports Authority claimed that none of these consignments have been released. But once it was revealed that it had been released, he said that the stocks had been released to the importer's storage facilities due to insufficient space in the customs warehouse, and that he didn't know whether it had been released from that point. The government has intentionally allowed people to consume carcinogenic coconut oil. They are trying to conceal the scam involved in importing consignments of sugar and coconut oil. The sugar scam caused a loss of 16 billion rupees to the state. At the same time, the coconut oil scam caused a loss of 750 million. It is the Pyramid Wilmar company that is behind the coconut oil scam as well. They are the owners of the Shangri-La Hotel in Sri Lanka. An investigation doesn't seem to have been launched into the sugar and coconut scams. The Treasury has published a report outlining the losses caused due to the scams. These had taken place in a planned manner. The government banned imports to promote local products. As a result of the coconut oil scam, the cost of imports that usually stood at about $25 million increased by 270% up to $107 million. The same applies to the sugar scam as well. It is explicitly visible that a scam has taken place.
270කින් ඉහළ යනවා. එතකොට සීනි වලටත් එහෙමමයි. බැලූ බැල්මටම තියෙනවා මෙතන වංචාවක් සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා.
රුපියල් 50 සීනි බද්ද 125 කරපු වෙලාවේ නැව් ටික වරායයින් නවත්තන් තියන් ඉඳලා බද්ද අයින් කරපු ගමන් නැව් ටික.
The 50 rupee import levy was reduced to 25 cents. The consignments were unloaded at the Colombo port and then cleared from the storage facilities only after the tax was reduced. The importer earned more than 10 billion in profits in 2 months. The Finance Ministry issued a report saying that this amount rose to 15.9 billion by the 20th of February. This is the loss faced by the country. But those involved continue to be protected. They are unable to catch the suspects. That is why the people are forced to consume harmful commodities. They are trying to sweep the bond scam under the carpet by creating a discourse on harmful coconut oil. Can we allow this to happen? The Treasury was due to receive 15.9 billion rupees. On the 4th of January, I filed a complaint with the CID. They are trying to conceal the sugar scam through the discourse on harmful coconut oil. They might stir up another topic in the next few days.
CID එකට ඒ වංචා ඔක්කොම දැන් පොල් තෙල් විස පොල් තෙල් වලින් වහගන්න තමයි හදන්නේ. හෙට අනිද්දා තව කතාවක් දානවා එකක් එළියට.
Meanwhile, Pyramid Wilmar Private Limited has denied allegations that are being levelled against its products, including cooking oils. In a statement, the company said its products are released to the market only upon being duly certified as compliant with the required standards, including aflatoxin levels as stipulated by regulatory authorities. Pyramid Wilmar Private Limited said that it manufactures cooking oils under stringent quality parameters and are duly compliant with international and local health and safety standards.
While discourses on the quality of coconut oil, sugar and coconut oil scams continue to dominate the headlines at present, those in rural Sri Lanka continue to suffer due to the lack of robust infrastructure. Residents of the Rotumba West Gramaneladari division in the Paskoda Divisional Secretariat Mathura grapple with death each time they cross the only bridge which leads to the village. The vine bridge used by area residents to cross the Rotumba stream is currently in a decrepit state. Residents of Pilikanahena, Ittalagalhena, Talgastanna and Kahawinna utilize the bridge on a daily basis, throwing caution to the wind. Residents lament the vine bridge had deteriorated over time since it had not been maintained routinely.
We cross this bridge daily. There are people suffering from illnesses who require constant medical attention. What are the authorities doing to uplift our lives? Ask them not to step foot here during elections. We will not vote for them. All they do is inspect the location and leave. 4 people had fallen yesterday and 1 child still can't walk.
Nearly 200 families cross this bridge bearing a serious risk. Their pleas to renovate the bridge have only rung hollow in the ears of responsible authorities. Although Newsfirst reported on this decrepit bridge on the 12th of January, no action has been taken to renovate it as of yet. On the 19th of this month, the Vine Bridge had collapsed while 4 people were crossing it. The Divisional Secretary of Paskoda had thereafter inspected the collapsed bridge, but no maintenance has been carried out to date. Large-scale development projects are imperative for the progress of a nation. But should authorities remain docile until election season to inquire into the plight of those who grapple with death on a daily basis? Moving on, a new television channel named Haritha TV was launched by the Sri Jinaratana Educational Institute of the Hunupitiya Gangarame Temple today.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa attended the launch of Haritha TV, which also saw the attendance of senior members of the Buddhist clergy. The objective of the newly launched television channel is to disseminate information relating to agriculture and prosperity. Fruits and vegetables are key export commodities in our country, but except for a few varieties, they haven't been cultivated up to a good standard. Since the government seems to be enthusiastic about this, we thought of the means through which we can lend our support as a religious place of worship. This is not a religious channel, but every channel begins and ends days by chanting religious observances. That will be the case here too. Our exercise will aim at creating a prosperous agricultural economy centered around our religion.
යහපත් කෘෂි ආර්ථිකයක් කරා යන්නයි මේ වැඩසටහන.
The President launched the website of Haritha TV and the theme song of the channel during the event.
The appeal court today announced that a decision on Ranjan Ramanayaka's petition against any action on his parliamentary seat will be delivered on the 5th of April.
The two-member judge bench comprising appeal court president Justice Arjun Obesekara and Justice Maya Dunakorea was to deliver the verdict on Ranjan Ramanayaka's case today. However, the date was refixed for the 5th of April as the verdict had not been made ready today. Meanwhile, Minister Mahinda Aluthgamage today withdrew a case filed against Ranjan Ramanayaka at the Nugegoda Magistrates Court. The case had been filed seeking 500 million rupees as damages for certain remarks made by Ranjan Ramanayaka during a media briefing in 2016.
I thought to myself that this man is helpless in prison. He has been misguided by many. I think he should be pardoned. Today, Ranjan Ramanayaka came before the court and apologized for what he did. Therefore, I withdrew the case.
මේ කරපු සිද්ධිය පිළිබඳව තුමගේ කනගාටු ප්‍රකාශ කරා. ඒ අනුව මම මේ නඩුව ඉල්ලාස් කරගත්තා.
ජනාධිපති සමාවක් හිමි වේවිද?
සාක්ෂිකරුවන් 103 දෙනෙක් ඉන්න.
When 103 respondents were present, President's Counsel M. Sumandiran, who represented Ranjan Ramanayaka, concluded the hearing of evidence by 3 respondents. If he had recorded evidence from all 103 respondents, Ranjan Ramanayaka would have been released. Sumandiran wanted to imprison Ranjan Ramanayaka and take him to the Human Rights Council. I am deeply saddened about MP Ranjan Ramanayaka. I will make a personal suggestion citing that justice must be served for him.
පක්ෂේ මම යෝජනාවක් කරන්න හදනවා පෞද්ගලිකව මේ මනුස්සයාට යම් සාධාරණයක් වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා මම හිතනවා.
In more local news, the Ministry of Justice has set up a notarial advisory committee under the chairmanship of Senior Attorney at Law G.G. Arulpragasam to speed up the legal system.
The committee comprises members from the Ministry of Justice, the Attorney General's Department, the Registrar General's Department, the Legal Draftsman's Department, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and senior members of the Bar. The significant features of the proposed amendments proposed by the National Notarial Advisory Committee were to prevent malpractices by the notaries, to safeguard the interests of litigants and to expedite the process of law and to avoid unwanted protracted litigation.
Most of the time what happens is we see infrastructure development as only building roads, telecommunications, highways and other facilities, electricity and water. That's very important. But similarly, like to a computer, how the hardware is important, more important is software. For a society, what is the software? Software is the laws, regulations. So we are in the process of upgrading that. Everything else had been upgraded, but laws had not been upgraded. So we are in the process of upgrading the software of the society, which cannot be done by 1 or 2 people. We presented our plan for the increase of the judges, 93 of them during the next 15 months. So that's how serious we are working. And the third one is very important thing is digitalization. It's a massive thing which is happening. That is also almost done. We are in the process of calling for expression of interest. Once that happens, in 4 years period, on 4 stages, all the courts in the country will be linked. The question of somebody is trying to hide the file will be a thing of the past. So we will do all those things with the blessings and support of all of you.
Honourable Minister, you are very well aware that the Power of Attorney Ordinance, Wills Ordinance and the Registration Documents Ordinance and the Notaries Ordinance were enacted during the British regime and some have not been amended for the last 100 years. So however, our committee managed to finalize the amendment within the timeline granted to us.
When the Honourable Minister was appointed, he obtained the Cabinet approval and appointed 5 subcommittees to look into several areas of law which needs urgent reforms. Within the given time frame, the Ministry requested to finalize these amendments and proposals within 3 months, and the committee has kept to the time frame given, and they have completed their task within the given time frame. And we are thankful to the advisory committee headed by Mr. Arul Prakasam, Senior Attorney at Law, and all the members, all the respected members of that committee.
The following views were expressed at a webinar titled Solidarity with Sri Lanka, Rule of Law Imperiled, which was held by the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, Australasia today.
What I want to say is that when you look at the history of constitutional development in independent Sri Lanka, is that rather than promoting the rule of law in a very solid manner, the constitutional developments themselves contributed to the erosion of the rule of law. When we are thinking of constitutional reforms, I think we need to talk about not purely just constitutional reforms, but instilling a very strong sense of constitutionalism.
The courts in India have also held that the state is the master of the litigation in criminal cases. But insofar as executive actions are concerned, undoing judicial verdicts by executive actions have never been tolerated.
When the 19th Amendment was passed, or rather the immunity was taken away, there was only one saving, that only the declaration of war or peace would be immune from judicial scrutiny. The Supreme Court last time also, and in the dissolution case, made it very clear that apart from a declaration of war and peace, or of peace, any official action of the president can be challenged under the fundamental rights jurisdiction.
But from the point of view of civil liberties champions, the judgment didn't go far enough. So, for example, about the appointments of commissioners to independent commissions, in my opinion, with due respect to the court, I think the judgment glossed over it and, didn't really make a point that protection of rights requires independent commissions. And so appointment of the commissioners themselves are as, important. That was glossed over. And so therefore we have the current arrangement.
And with that, it's a wrap of primetime news here on TV1. For the News First team, I'm Yuki Poshia. Take care and good night.